Before Netflix, before bedtime snacks, before socks were invented, or even feet to wear them, there was a titan. Not just any titan. A clever, rebellious, fire-stealing, eagle-baiting, Zeus-annoying titan named Prometheus. If myths were bedtime stories, Prometheus would be the one that keeps you up just long enough to wonder, wait, he did what with fire? This is not just a story. It's the story. The one where humanity gets fire, gods get petty, and one immortal gets chained to a rock for eternity. So fluff your pillow, dim the lights, and prepare to be gently bored into blissful sleep by the slow-burning saga of the titan who gave humanity its spark and got roasted for it long ago, before humans had invented the snooze button or the existential dread of Monday mornings. The universe was a swirling soup of chaos. Not the kind of chaos where your laundry eats your favorite shirt, but the mythological kind. Primordial, poetic, and deeply confusing. Out of chaos came Gaia, Earth, Uranus, Sky, and a whole bunch of divine drama. These two had kids, lots of kids, and not the kind who ask for juice boxes. These were titans, big, powerful, moody beings who could lift mountains and still complain about dinner. Among these titans was Cronus, who had a habit of eating his children. Yes, eating. Not metaphorically. He literally swallowed them whole. Why? Because he was told one of them would overthrow him. And instead of going to therapy, he went full cannibal. Eventually, one of his kids, Zeus, escaped digestion, grew up, and overthrew Cronus. Classic myth stuff. But this story isn't about Zeus. It's about Prometheus, the titan who didn't want to rule the world. He just wanted to make it brighter. Who was Prometheus? Prometheus wasn't like the other titans. While they were busy flexing their cosmic muscles and arguing over who invented thunder, Prometheus was thinking. His name literally means forethought. He was the kind of guy who packed snacks for a journey that hadn't even started yet. He saw the future, planned ahead, and had a soft spot for the underdog, namely, humans. Humans, at this point, were basically clay blobs, with bad posture. Prometheus looked at them and thought, these squishy little mortals could use a boost. And thus began the greatest act of divine rebellion in mythological history. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. First, let's meet the titans. Then we'll mold mankind. Then we'll steal fire. Then we'll get punished. Then we'll meet an eagle. Then we'll open a box. Then we'll cry. Then we'll hope. Then we'll get rescued. Then we'll symbolize everything from science to rebellion to bedtime procrastination. So tuck in. This is going to be a long, slow, cozy ride through myth, fire, feathers, and fate. If you're still awake, congratulations. You've survived the first yawn of the Prometheus saga. If you're already asleep, Prometheus would be proud. He believed in rest, rebellion, and roasting gods with cleverness. Like and subscribe if you want more sleepy mythology. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Whether it's a cozy bed in London, a couch in New York, or a hammock somewhere with suspiciously good Wi-Fi. Before humans ever walked the earth, before fire crackled in hearths or stories were whispered beneath blankets, the world was quiet. Not peaceful, exactly, just unfinished. It was a place of potential, like a stage waiting for actors, or a book with its pages still blank. In the beginning, there was chaos, not the noisy kind with traffic and to-do lists, but the ancient, swirling void from which everything came. Chaos was not good or bad. It simply was. From this formless fog emerged Gaia, the earth, solid and nurturing, and Uranus, the sky, vast and watchful. Together, they began the first family of the cosmos. Gaia and Uranus had many children, powerful beings called the Titans. These weren't your average bedtime characters. They were enormous, elemental, and moody. There was Oceanus, who flowed like the sea, Hyperion, who gleamed like the sun, and Rhea, who would one day become the mother of gods. And among them was Cronus, who would later become infamous for swallowing his own children. But that's another chapter. The Titans ruled the world in those early days. There were no humans yet, no cities, no fires, no laughter. The earth was beautiful, but empty. Mountains rose high into the sky, but no one climbed them. Rivers ran endlessly to the sea, but no one fished their waters. The stars blinked in the night, but no one made wishes on them. It was a world of silence and grandeur. Prometheus, one of the younger Titans, watched this world with thoughtful eyes. While his brothers and sisters bickered or boasted, he wondered, he imagined. He saw the earth, not just as it was, but as it could be. He saw creatures who could build, dream, and question. Creatures who could look up at the stars and wonder what they were. But those creatures did not yet exist. Prometheus walked the hills and valleys, listening to the wind, watching the waves. He saw the beauty of the world, but also its loneliness. The gods had each other. The Titans had their power, but the earth itself had no voice. No one to name the trees or sing to the moon. No one to tell stories. And so, the idea of humanity began to take shape. Not in clay, not yet, but in the mind of a Titan who believed the world deserved more than silence. The world before humanity was vast and still, but change was coming. A spark was forming, and Prometheus, the Titan of forethought, was already planning what would come next. In the earliest days of existence, when time itself was still stretching its limbs and yawning into being, the universe was ruled not by gods, but by Titans. After chaos gave rise to Gaia, the earth, and Uranus, the sky, the two came together, not with flowers and chocolates, but with cosmic force, and brought forth a new generation of beings. These were the Titans, mighty, ancient, and elemental. They weren't born in hospitals or cradled in blankets. They emerged from the earth and sky like mountains rising from the sea. There were 12 original Titans, and each had a role to play in the shaping of the world. Oceanus flowed endlessly around the earth, a river without beginning or end. Hyperion gleamed with the light of the sun. Theia sparkled with the brilliance of sight and gold. Mnemosyne held the memory of all things, and Cronus, grim, sharp, and ambitious, would one day become the most feared of them all. The Titans were powerful, but they were not peaceful. Uranus, their father, feared their strength. He pushed them back into Gaia's womb, deep within the earth, causing her great pain. Gaia, weary of this cruelty, crafted a plan. She forged a sickle of flint and gave it to her youngest son, Cronus. One night, as Uranus descended to embrace Gaia, Cronus struck. With one swift motion, he severed the sky from the earth. The reign of Uranus ended, and Cronus took his place as ruler of the cosmos. But power, once taken, is never easily kept. Cronus ruled with suspicion. He married his sister Rhea and fathered children of his own. But he had heard a prophecy that one of his children would overthrow him, just as he had overthrown his father. So, one by one, he swallowed them. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, all devoured before they could cry out. Only one escaped, Zeus, hidden by Rhea and raised in secret. But that tale belongs to another chapter. Among the Titans who watched all this unfold was Prometheus. He was not like the others. While they fought and schemed, he observed. He remembered. He planned. He saw the rise and fall of power, the cycles of fear and control, and he began to wonder if there might be another way, a different kind of creation, one not born of fear, but of hope. The Titans had shaped the world with force. Prometheus would shape it with thought. And so, while the heavens thundered with the battles of gods and Titans, Prometheus turned his gaze to the earth below. It was time to create something new. Prometheus was not like the other Titans. While many of his siblings were known for their brute strength or cosmic roles, like holding up the sky or stirring the oceans, Prometheus was known for something far more subtle, his mind. His name meant forethought, and he lived up to it. He was thoughtful, clever, and curious. He didn't just see the world as it was. He imagined what it could become. While other Titans bickered over power, Prometheus pondered possibilities. He was the son of the Titan Iapetus and the Oceanid Clymene, making him a second-generation Titan. He had brothers too, Atlas, who would one day hold up the heavens, Menoetius, who was known for his violent temper, and Epimetheus, whose name meant afterthought. Epimetheus was the kind of brother who acted first and thought later. Prometheus, on the other hand, always thought ahead. Prometheus sided with Zeus during the great war between the Titans and the Olympian gods. While many Titans fought to preserve the old order, Prometheus saw the future in Zeus's rebellion. He helped the Olympians win, expecting a new age of wisdom and justice. But once the war was over, Prometheus began to see cracks in Zeus's rule. The new king of the gods was powerful, yes, but also proud, controlling, and quick to punish. Prometheus had hoped for a better world. Instead, he saw one where mortals were kept weak and ignorant. And so, Prometheus turned his attention to humanity. He saw in them a spark, something fragile but full of promise. He wanted to help them grow, to give them the tools they needed to survive and thrive. He would become their protector, their teacher, and eventually their rebel champion. Prometheus was not just a Titan. He was a symbol of defiance, of intellect, and of compassion. He was the one who dared to challenge the gods, not for power, but for the sake of those who had none. And soon, he would make his boldest move yet. Prometheus had watched the earth for ages. He had seen it bloom with mountains, rivers, forests, and stars. But something was missing. The world was beautiful, yes, but it was quiet. Too quiet. There were no voices to sing, no hands to build, no minds to wonder. So Prometheus decided to create mankind. He didn't rush. Prometheus was a Titan of forethought, after all. He chose clay, soft, earthy, and full of potential. With careful hands, he shaped the first humans. Not too tall, not too small. He gave them arms to reach, legs to walk, and eyes to see the world. He molded their faces with curiosity and their hearts with longing. He didn't make them perfect. That wasn't the point. He made them capable of learning, growing, and dreaming. When he was done, Prometheus looked at his creation and felt something rare among Titans. pride. These beings were fragile, yes, but they held a spark. Not a literal spark, not yet, but something inside them that could become greatness. But there was a problem. The humans were alive, but they were cold. They had no fire, no warmth, no light. They huddled in caves, afraid of the dark. They couldn't cook, couldn't forge, couldn't protect themselves. Prometheus had given them form, but not yet the tools to survive. He knew what they needed: fire, the divine flame, the power of the gods. But Zeus had forbidden it, and Prometheus, thoughtful and stubborn, began to plan. Prometheus had shaped mankind from clay, giving them form and life. But life alone was not enough. The humans were cold, vulnerable, and afraid. They had no fire, no warmth, no light, no protection. They huddled in darkness, unable to cook food, forge tools, or chase away the night. Fire was the key. It was the spark of civilization, the beginning of progress. But fire belonged to the gods. It burned on Mount Olympus, guarded by Zeus and his divine pride. He had forbidden it to mortals, fearing what they might become if they possessed such power. Prometheus disagreed. He saw the humans struggling and felt a deep compassion. They were his creation, his responsibility. He believed they deserved more than mere survival. They deserved a chance to thrive, and so Prometheus made a decision. A quiet, dangerous decision. He would give them fire, not with permission, not with ceremony, but with cunning. Prometheus crept into Olympus, moving like a shadow among the halls of the gods. He found the sacred flame, glowing with divine heat. He took a fennel stalk, a hollow plant that could hide a burning ember, and stole a piece of the fire. He carried it down from the mountain, through the clouds, across the hills, and into the hands of mankind. The humans stared in awe as the flame flickered before them. It danced, it crackled, it warmed their skin. They fed it wood and watched it grow. They cooked their food, lit their homes, and forged their first tools. Prometheus had given them more than fire. He had given them power, possibility, a future. But Zeus was watching, and he was not pleased. After the great war between the Titans and the Olympians, Zeus stood atop Mount Olympus as the new ruler of the cosmos. His thunderbolt crackled with authority, and his gaze swept across the earth like a storm waiting to happen. He had defeated Cronus, imprisoned the old Titans, and established a new order. But peace, in the realm of gods, was never simple. Zeus believed in control. He saw himself not just as king, but as guardian of divine power. To him, mortals were fragile, fleeting things, useful in their devotion, but dangerous in their ambition. He wanted them humble, dependent, and quiet. He wanted them to worship, not wonder. And fire was sacred. It burned on Olympus, in golden hearths and divine forges. It was the essence of transformation, the spark of invention, the light of knowledge. With fire, one could cook, craft, build, and even challenge the heavens. Zeus knew this. He feared this. So he made a decree: fire would remain with the gods. No mortal hand would touch it. No human would wield its power. The earth would stay cold, dark, and dependent. Prometheus heard the decree and felt a slow burn of defiance. He had shaped mankind with care, sculpting them from clay and breathing life into their forms. He had watched them stumble through the shadows, shivering in caves, unable to cook their food or warm their children. He saw their potential: curiosity, creativity, resilience. And he saw their suffering. To Prometheus, Zeus's decree was not just unfair, it was cruel. He tried to reason with the king of gods. He spoke of compassion, of growth, of the beauty of human possibility. But Zeus was unmoved. He saw Prometheus's sympathy as rebellion. He warned him not to interfere. The gods had given humans life, nothing more. To give them fire was to give them power, and power, Zeus believed, belonged only to Olympus. Prometheus said nothing, but inside, he was already planning. He would not obey. He would not watch his creation suffer. He would not let fear dictate the fate of mankind. And so, in the quiet hours of divine dusk, Prometheus began to prepare for the theft that would ignite the greatest myth of all. Prometheus had made up his mind. He had watched humanity struggle in the cold, stumbling through the dark, unable to cook, craft, or protect themselves. He had listened to Zeus's decree forbidding fire to mortals, and he had stayed silent on the outside. But inside, Prometheus was planning. He didn't rush. He was the titan of forethought, after all. Every step had to be precise, every detail considered. He knew the risks. Stealing fire from the gods was not a prank. It was a rebellion, a challenge to Olympus itself. Prometheus began by studying the sacred flame. It burned in the halls of the gods, tended by divine hands, guarded by Zeus's authority. It was not just heat, it was power, a symbol of divine control. To take it would be to defy the king of the gods. He chose his moment carefully, not during a feast, not during a thunderstorm, but in the quiet hours when Olympus slept. The gods, full of nectar and pride, were dreaming of their own glory. Prometheus moved like a shadow, silent and sure. He found the flame. It danced in golden bowls, flickering with divine energy. He didn't take a torch. That would be too obvious. Instead, he chose a fennel stalk, hollow, simple, and perfect for hiding a burning ember. He reached into the flame, took a spark, and tucked it inside the stalk. It was done. Prometheus left Olympus, descending through clouds and wind, carrying the stolen fire. He didn't look back. He didn't hesitate. He walked toward Earth, toward the humans he had shaped, toward the future he believed in. He arrived in silence. The humans gathered around him, curious and cold. Prometheus knelt and opened the stalk. The ember glowed. He fed it twigs, then branches, then logs. The fire grew, crackling and warm. The humans gasped. They reached out, felt the heat, saw the light. They were no longer helpless. Prometheus had given them fire, but he had also lit a fuse. Zeus would find out, and when he did, the skies would tremble. Prometheus had made his decision. He would defy Zeus. He would steal fire from the gods and give it to mankind, not for glory, not for revenge, but for compassion. He had watched the humans suffer, cold, hungry, helpless. They were clever, yes, but they lacked the spark to transform their world. Prometheus knew that fire was more than heat. It was knowledge. It was power. It was the beginning of civilization. And so, he prepared. He waited for the right moment. The halls of Olympus were often busy with feasts, arguments, and divine distractions. Prometheus moved quietly, unnoticed among the gods. He was a titan, yes, but he had earned their trust during the war. He was clever enough to blend in, patient enough to wait. One evening, as the gods celebrated some celestial victory, Prometheus slipped away. He found the sacred flame, burning bright, eternal, and forbidden. He didn't take a torch. That would be too obvious. Instead, He chose a fennel stalk, a hollow plant, perfect for hiding a glowing ember. He reached into the flame and took a spark. It hissed softly, alive with divine energy. He tucked it into the stalk, shielding it from the wind, and descended from Olympus, through clouds and mist, across valleys and rivers. Prometheus carried the stolen fire to earth. When he arrived, the humans gathered around him. They didn't understand at first. They had never seen fire. Prometheus knelt and opened the stalk. The ember glowed. He fed it twigs, then branches, then logs. The fire grew, crackling and warm. The humans gasped. They reached out, felt the heat, saw the light. They cooked their food, lit their homes, forged their first tools. They sang, danced, and told stories around the flame. Prometheus watched in silence. He had given them more than fire. He had given them hope. But far above, on Mount Olympus, Zeus stirred. He had felt the theft. He had sensed the flame leave its sacred place, and he was not amused. The skies darkened. The winds howled. The king of gods was preparing his wrath. Prometheus had lit the fire. Now he would face the storm. The fire had been stolen. Zeus, high upon his throne on Mount Olympus, felt it the moment it happened, not through smoke or scent, but through the subtle shift in the balance of power. A divine ember had left its sacred hearth. A boundary had been crossed. A law had been broken. And Zeus knew exactly who had done it. Prometheus, the titan of forethought, the clever one, the one who always seemed to be thinking 2 steps ahead, the one who had helped the gods win the war against the titans, but who now dared to defy the king of gods himself. Zeus's fury was not like a mortal tantrum. It was vast and cold, like a storm building over the sea. He didn't shout. He didn't throw thunderbolts. Yet, instead, he sat in silence, his knuckles white around the armrests of his throne, his eyes glowing with restrained rage. He had warned Prometheus. He had made it clear fire was not for mortals. It was sacred, dangerous, divine, and yet Prometheus had taken it, not for himself, but for the humans, those fragile, fleeting creatures of clay. Zeus looked down at the earth and saw the fires burning, small at first, but spreading, villages glowing with warmth, smoke curling into the sky, sparks flying from hammers and forges, humans laughing, cooking, creating. They were no longer helpless, and that terrified him. Zeus feared what fire would bring. Not just warmth, but ambition. Not just light, but rebellion. With fire, humans could build cities, craft weapons, challenge the gods. They could forget who ruled them. They could forget to be afraid. That, to Zeus, was the true crime. He summoned the other gods. The great hall of Olympus, filled with divine murmurs and uneasy glances. Some admired Prometheus's boldness. Others feared Zeus's wrath. But none dared to speak against him. Zeus stood and declared his judgment. Prometheus would be punished, not just for stealing fire, but for giving it away, for believing that mortals deserved power, for daring to challenge the will of Olympus. But Zeus would not strike him down. That would be too quick, too merciful. No, Prometheus would suffer. He would be made an example. His punishment would be eternal. And so, the king of gods began to craft a sentence so cruel, so precise, that it would echo through myth for all time. Prometheus had lit a spark. Now, Zeus would make sure it burned forever. Prometheus was chained to the cliff, high in the Caucasus Mountains. where the wind never rested and the sky seemed to stretch forever, the Titan lay bound. His wrists and ankles were locked in divine iron, forged by Hephaestus himself. The stone beneath him was jagged and cold. The air was thin. The silence was endless. But each morning, that silence was broken. From the horizon came a shadow, wide-winged, slow, relentless. It was the eagle, not a bird of beauty or grace, but a creature of punishment. Sent by Zeus, born of divine wrath, it had one purpose: to torment Prometheus. Its wings beat the air like thunder, its eyes gleamed with hunger, and its beak, sharp, cruel, and tireless, descended upon Prometheus's side. Each day, the eagle tore into his flesh, feasting on his liver. It was not a quick attack. It was slow, methodical. The pain was constant, but Prometheus did not scream. He clenched his jaw, he endured, and each night his body healed. Because Prometheus was immortal, his liver grew back, his wounds closed, his strength returned, only to be taken again the next day. This was the punishment Zeus had chosen. Not death, not silence, but repetition, an endless cycle of suffering. The eagle came with the dawn, left with the dusk, returned with the sunrise. Prometheus lay there, day after day, year after year, century after century. He watched the stars move across the sky. He listened to the wind whisper through the mountains. He felt the fire of pain and the chill of solitude, but he never regretted his choice. Far below, humans lived. They cooked. They built. They warmed their children by the fire. They told stories, some of them about him. Prometheus had given them fire, and though he suffered, he knew the flame was worth it. Zeus had made his decision. Prometheus, the Titan who had dared to defy him, would not be granted a swift punishment. No lightning bolt, no instant end. That would be too easy, too forgettable. No, Prometheus would suffer. He would become a warning. Zeus summoned Hephaestus, the god of fire and forge. Though Hephaestus was a craftsman, not a warrior, he could not refuse the king of gods. With heavy heart and hammer in hand, he forged the chains, unbreakable, divine, and cold as Olympus itself. Then, with the help of Kratos and Bia, personifications of strength and force, Zeus ordered Prometheus to be taken far from the lands of men, not to a dungeon, not to the underworld, but to the edge of the world itself, high in the Caucasus Mountains, where the wind howled and the snow never melted. They found a jagged cliff face. There, against the stone, they bound him, the chains wrapped around his wrists and ankles, biting into his immortal flesh. He could not move. He could not rest. He could only endure. And then came the final cruelty. Zeus sent an eagle, not a bird of beauty or grace, but a monstrous creature of divine punishment. Its wings cast shadows, like storm clouds. Its beak was sharp, its hunger endless. Each day, the eagle would descend upon Prometheus. It would tear into his side and feast upon his liver. And each night, because Prometheus was immortal, his body would heal. The liver would grow back. The pain would return, and the cycle would begin again, day after day, year after year, century after century. Prometheus, the fire-bringer, the friend of mankind, was left alone on the mountain, chained, bleeding, watching the sky. He did not cry out. He did not beg. He endured because he knew what he had done, and he believed it was worth it. Far below, the fires of humanity burned, and Prometheus, even in agony, held on to that small, flickering hope. Zeus was not finished. Prometheus had stolen fire and given it to mankind. He had defied Olympus, challenged divine authority, and empowered mortals. Zeus had punished Prometheus with eternal torment, but he wanted more. He wanted to punish humanity too. Not with thunder, not with floods, but with something subtle, something irresistible. He would give them a gift, a beautiful, dangerous gift. Zeus summoned Hephaestus once again, this time not to forge chains, but to sculpt a woman. From clay, Hephaestus shaped her, graceful, radiant, and flawless. The gods gathered around, each adding something to her design. Aphrodite gave her beauty, Hermes gave her charm and cunning, Athena gave her skill and curiosity, Apollo gave her music and grace. Even Hera, queen of the gods, gave her pride. They named her Pandora, all gifted. She was unlike anything the world had seen. Not a goddess, not a mortal, but something in between. She shimmered with divine craftsmanship, and her eyes sparkled with mystery. But Zeus had one final touch. He gave her a jar, not a box, as some later stories would say, but a jar, sealed, heavy, and filled with things best left untouched. He did not tell her what was inside. He simply gave it to her and whispered, "Do not open this." Then Zeus sent Pandora to Earth. She was presented to Epimetheus, Prometheus's brother. Prometheus had warned Epimetheus never to accept gifts from Zeus. But Epimetheus, true to his name, Afterthought, forgot the warning. He saw Pandora and was enchanted. He welcomed her, and so the gods' plan unfolded. Pandora lived among humans, graceful and kind. But the jar remained, sitting in the corner, whispering to her curiosity, calling to her. She had been given every gift, and soon she would open the one that was meant to be kept closed. Prometheus had endured centuries of torment, chained to the cold cliffs of the Caucasus Mountains. He had faced the eagle's daily assault, his liver torn, his body healing, the pain returning. The cycle was endless, the punishment divine. Yet through it all, Prometheus remained silent, not broken, not bitter, just enduring. But even gods change. Zeus, though proud and powerful, began to see the world differently. Humanity had grown. They had used the fire not just to survive, but to thrive. They built homes, forged tools, created music, and told stories. They suffered, yes, but they also hoped. And in every spark, every flame, every hearth, the legacy of Prometheus burned quietly. Zeus watched. He saw that Prometheus's gift had not led to rebellion, but to resilience. Not chaos, but creativity. And slowly, the king of gods began to reconsider. It was Heracles, Zeus's own son, who finally brought change. As part of his heroic labors, Heracles climbed the mountain where Prometheus lay. He saw the chains, he saw the eagle, and he saw the suffering that had lasted far too long. With strength born of purpose, Heracles drove the eagle away. With hands forged by courage, he broke the divine chains. The iron snapped, the bindings fell, and for the first time in ages, Prometheus stood free. The wind rushed around him. The sky opened above him. The pain was gone. Prometheus looked out over the earth. Fires flickered in the distance. Children laughed. Songs rose into the air. Humanity had grown, and he had helped them rise. His suffering had ended, but his legacy had just begun. Pandora lived among humans, graceful and kind. Her presence, like a soft breeze in spring. She was curious, clever, and full of charm, every trait gifted to her by the gods. But in her home, sat a jar, heavy, sealed, whispering. Zeus had given it to her with one simple instruction: do not open this. But curiosity is a powerful thing. Pandora tried to ignore it. She swept around it, sang beside it, even placed flowers near its base. But the jar called to her, not with words, but with wonder. What could be inside? Why was it forbidden? Days passed, then weeks. The jar remained closed, until one quiet afternoon, when the world seemed still and the wind held its breath, Pandora reached out. Her fingers brushed the lid. Her heart raced. She hesitated, just for a moment, and then she opened it. The jar hissed. From its depths poured shadows, dark, swirling, and wild. They flew into the sky, into the streets, into the hearts of men and women. Sickness, greed, anger, envy, lies, pain, all the sorrows of the world unleashed in a single breath. Pandora cried out, trying to close the lid, but it was too late. The evils had escaped, spreading across the earth like a storm. She fell to her knees, heartbroken. She had not meant to harm anyone. She had only wanted to know. But then, from the bottom of the jar, came a whisper, soft, gentle, glowing. Hope. It rose slowly, like a candle in the dark. Pandora caught it before it could escape. She held it close, trembling. It was the last thing left in the jar, the only thing that could comfort a world now filled with sorrow. Hope remained. And so, even as humanity faced pain and hardship, they also held on to something else, something quiet, persistent, and powerful. The belief that things could get better. When Pandora opened the jar, the world changed. Darkness spilled into the air. Sorrow, sickness, greed, anger, and fear. The evils flew like shadows across the earth, settling into hearts and homes. Humanity, once innocent, now faced pain they had never known. The skies seemed dimmer, the laughter quieter, the world heavier. Pandora wept. She had not meant to harm anyone. She had only been curious, but curiosity, like fire, can be both gift and danger. She tried to close the jar, but the damage had been done. The evils had escaped, and there was no way to catch them. And then, from the depths of the jar, came something unexpected. A soft glow, a whisper, hope. It rose slowly, gently, like a candle flickering in the wind. Pandora caught it before it could vanish. She held it close, trembling. It was warm, not like fire, but like comfort. It didn't erase the evils, but it softened them. It didn't undo the pain, but it reminded her that pain was not the end. Hope was the last thing in the jar. The gods had placed it there deliberately. Zeus, for all his wrath, had allowed one gift to remain, a quiet promise that even in suffering there could be light. And so, hope stayed with humanity. It lived in lullabies, sung to frightened children, in hands reaching out to help, in stories told by firelight, in dreams whispered beneath the stars. Prometheus had given humans fire. Pandora had given them hope. And together, those gifts shaped the world. Not perfect, not painless, but full of possibility. Prometheus endured, chained to the jagged cliffs of the Caucasus Mountains. He faced the eagle's cruel arrival each morning. Its wings beat the air like thunder. Its beak tore into his flesh, feasting on his liver. The pain was sharp, relentless, and eternal. Yet Prometheus did not scream. He did not beg. He endured. The wind howled around him. Snow fell in silence. The stars blinked above, watching the Titan who had defied the gods. Day after day, his body healed. Night after night, the eagle returned. The cycle never broke. The suffering never paused, but Prometheus held on, not to hope for rescue, not to dreams of freedom, but to purpose. He remembered the humans, his creation. He remembered the fire he had given them. He imagined their lives, gathering around flames, telling stories, building homes, forging futures. He imagined children laughing, elders teaching, artists painting, thinkers wondering. He imagined a world that had grown because of him, and that gave him strength. The gods had punished him, yes, but they had not broken him. His body was bound, but his spirit remained free. He endured not out of stubbornness, but out of love for the fragile, curious beings he had shaped from clay. Prometheus became more than a titan. He became a symbol of sacrifice, of defiance, of quiet strength. And though the eagle came each day, and the pain returned each night, Prometheus endured. Because sometimes the greatest power is not in thunder or fire, but in the choice to keep going. The world had changed. Generations had passed since Prometheus was chained to the mountain. The fire he gave to humanity had spread across the earth, warming homes, forging tools, inspiring art, and kindling dreams. But while mortals thrived, the Titan who had gifted them that flame remained bound in agony. Each day, the eagle came. Each night, his wounds healed. And still, Prometheus endured. But the gods, too, had changed. Zeus, once unyielding in his wrath, had watched humanity grow. He had seen their resilience, their creativity, their capacity for both destruction and beauty. And perhaps, in some quiet corner of his heart, he began to wonder if Prometheus had been right. Then came Heracles, son of Zeus, hero of mortals, a man of strength and courage, born to bridge the worlds of gods and men. As part of his great labors, Heracles journeyed to the edge of the world, where the Caucasus Mountains pierced the sky and the wind never slept. There, he found Prometheus. The Titan was gaunt, his eyes hollow but unbroken. The chains still held him fast. The eagle circled above, ready to descend once more. Heracles did not hesitate. With a roar that echoed through the peaks, he raised his bow and loosed an arrow. It flew true, striking the eagle mid-flight. The creature shrieked and fell, its wings folding like broken sails. Then Heracles approached the cliff, with hands forged by toil and heart tempered by justice. He shattered the divine chains. The iron groaned, cracked, and fell away. Prometheus collapsed forward, free for the first time in countless centuries. The wind paused. The mountain held its breath. Prometheus stood. He looked at Heracles, not with pride, not with sorrow, but with quiet gratitude. No words were needed. The fire he had given had come full circle. A mortal, born of gods, had freed him. Zeus allowed it. Perhaps it was mercy. Perhaps it was understanding. Or perhaps it was simply time. Prometheus descended the mountain, not as a prisoner, but as a legend. The world he had helped ignite now welcomed him back. And in every flame that flickered, in every story told by firelight, his name lived on. Fire was the beginning. When Prometheus stole it from Olympus and placed it in the hands of mortals, he did more than defy Zeus. He changed the course of human destiny. That flickering flame was not just warmth. It was not just light. It was a symbol of knowledge. Before fire, humans lived in darkness, literal and metaphorical. They feared the night, the cold, the unknown. But with fire came transformation. They could cook food, forge tools, illuminate caves, and protect themselves. They could gather around it and share stories, dreams, ideas. Fire became the first teacher. It taught humans how to shape their world, how to survive, how to imagine. It sparked invention, art, and science. It was the first step toward civilization. And in every flame, the spirit of Prometheus burned quietly. His gift, his sacrifice, his belief in human potential. But fire also carried danger. It could destroy as easily as it could create. It could warm or burn, protect or consume. And so, it became a symbol of duality, of power and responsibility, just like knowledge. Knowledge, like fire, is a force. It can enlighten or deceive, heal or harm, build or break, and once it is given, it cannot be taken back. Prometheus understood this. He knew that by giving fire, he was giving humans the ability to choose, to rise or fall by their own hand. That was the true gift, not just the flame, but the freedom. And so, fire became more than a tool. It became a metaphor for curiosity, for courage, for the spark within every mind that dares to ask, what if? Prometheus gave humanity fire, but what he truly gave them was the light to see and the will to learn. The story of Prometheus is ancient, but its flame still burns. Long after the fires of Olympus dimmed and the myths of the old world faded into legend, the name Prometheus continues to echo through books and buildings, through science and art, through every act of bold defiance in the name of progress. He was the Titan who gave fire to mankind. But what he truly gave was something deeper, the courage to question, the will to endure, and the light of knowledge in a world that once knew only darkness. In every age, Prometheus has taken on new meaning. To the thinker, he is the spirit of inquiry, the one who dares to ask, why, when others say, dawn of tea. He is the spark behind every discovery, every invention, every idea that challenges the status quo. From Galileo to Einstein, from the printing press to the internet, the Promethean flame has guided the hands of those who seek to illuminate the unknown. To the artist, he is the muse of rebellion, the one who paints outside the lines, who sings against silence, who sculpts beauty from struggle. He reminds us that creation often comes with cost, but that the cost is worth it when it brings truth into the world. To the oppressed, he is a symbol of resistance, the one who stood against power, not for himself, but for others. He suffered so that others could rise. His chains are a reminder that justice is not always easy, but always necessary. To all of us, Prometheus is a mirror. He reflects the part of us that wants to do more than survive, the part that dreams, that questions, that reaches for something brighter. He reminds us that knowledge is not a luxury, it is a right, and that those who share it, even at great cost, shape the future. Even now, when we light a candle in the dark, when we teach a child to read, when we speak truth in the face of silence, we carry his legacy. Prometheus endures, not just in myth, but in every act of courage, every flicker of hope, every fire that refuses to go out. And now, the story is told. The mountain is quiet. The eagle has flown. The fire still burns, but gently now, like a hearth at the end of a long day. So close your eyes, little spark. Let the stars watch over you, and the wind carry your dreams. The world is full of stories, and yours is just beginning. Good night. Would you like a beautifully formatted